So Ruchita has shared the link. You can share your screen too, Ruchita.
Hey everybody, we'll also be recording the meeting, just so you know. Just wanted to let you all know. And thank you so much for being here.
So what is the first thought that comes to your mind? You can use the link down in the chat. Give your thoughts. Nice company, positive boundaries, community. For those of you who've just come in, we're using the link that's provided in the chat to see what social well-being means to everyone else. Build understanding, leisure. Wow. Looks really good. Thank you. We'll share the screen again at the end to see all our collective responses. Ruchita and Garima will be sharing the screens at the end again to tell us what it means to everyone else. So since we have a lot of new faces today, I wanted to introduce myself first. I'm Amrita Datta, and I'm an assistant professor of visual communication design at Heron School of Art and Design in Indiana University, Indianapolis. So welcome to Chai Time, hosted by the South Asian Design Educators Alliance, also known as SADEA. Chai Time is a biannual conversation series that's run by SADEA. We have called this event Chai Time. For those of you who don't know, because it's a common practice for many South Asians to share an intimate tradition of drinking uncountable cups of chai over conversations. So those conversations vary from being a stress buster, a friendly banter, a meaningful intellectual discussion, or even a debate trigger. So using this similar free-flowing format, the South Asian design educators residing in the United States decided to bring this long-living tradition back while stimulating culturally motivated discussion. So I hope everyone has a cup of chai to get started. I have my matcha right here. Little bit about SADEA. SADEA was formed in 2022 as a platform for South Asian design educators, scholars, and students to build a community and recreate the feeling of belonging. So this alliance addresses South Asian narratives and experiences as a part of the global design community. I am joined here by my colleagues today who are an integral part of SADEA. Our board members include our chair, Archana, graphic design professor at Illinois State University, our vice chair, Shantanu Simon, an associate professor at Ball State University, our secretary, Garima Thakur, who teaches at Southeastern Louisiana University, and I'm the treasurer. Our team does not end there. It extends further with the awesome student mentorship committee, without whom we would not have this event today. Ruchita Mandre, who is our mastermind and event planner for the day. She's a PhD student at Arizona State University. Hi, Ruchita. Asavari Kulkarni, an amazing type designer and an assistant professor of design at George Washington University. Muhammad Rahman, an assistant professor of communication design at University of Cincinnati. His wise words in this cross-cultural design words makes us work harder towards a collective goal as educators in this committee. So this chai time discussion specifically stems from all our shared experiences of feeling the need to be a part of a community when you're away from home. International students face a life of excitement, challenges, adventures, and many more. Some days it feels like we're ready to conquer the world. And on certain days, it feels like all we need is the warmth of our life we miss back home. So there's a continuous feeling of tug of war between our home and our hearts. So let's jump into this discussion with Ruchita and two other students who have graciously accepted to join us here for this discussion. So let's hear from them how they approach and navigate their social well-being in the United States. Ruchita, feel free to take over.
Thank you, Amrita. This was great. This was a great introduction. Today's session will focus on social well-being, and who better to hear it from than current students. So we are really grateful that Heba and Urvi have agreed to join us in today's conversation. Before we begin, Heba and Urvi, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I can go first. So I'm Heba. I'm from Kerala, but I grew up in Dubai, and I did my schooling, my undergrad, also in Dubai. So I did my undergrad in design management at the American University of Sharjah, and currently I am pursuing MFA in products of design at the School of Visual Arts in New York. I just completed my first year, and this summer my focus is on working on my thesis, just making sure I know what is it that I want to focus my thesis on. And yeah, so this, like, just being a part of Sadia now, it's been great. I think this was like the perfect way to start my summer and get started on my thesis also. So yeah, thank you everyone. And I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Heba.
Hi, I'm Urvi. I grew up in Bangalore, India, and I'm a Master of Design student at the University of Cincinnati. I did my bachelor's in visual communication design at Shrishti Institute of Art Design and Technology. Big name, I know. But yeah, I'm currently doing the summer co-op, like an internship that's required for us to do. So I'm in Rhode Island at the moment, but yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me and Heba. It's really nice to meet all of you.
Thank you, Urvi. So let's jump into our conversation. I wanted to begin with knowing a little bit about your journey. So could you let us know why you decided to pursue further education here in the United States?
Sure. Well, I'm by birth an American citizen, so my priorities were a little different. The main thing for me was to come here. I lived in India for 21 years on a visa, kind of wanted that to stop. No, but at the same time, I just figured doing a master's right after undergrad just seemed like the best option for me. I was kind of particular on not wanting to do an MFA. I wanted to do an MDes degree. I also knew about DAP as a school because one of my favorite graphic designers of all time is an alumnus, Michael Bierut. And yeah, it was a great opportunity. Cincinnati is not too big of a city. Everything just fell into place in terms of finances too. And that just kind of led me to where I am right now.
Heba, do you want to pitch in?
Yeah, sure. So since I did my undergrad at the American University of Sharjah, it just made sense to like do my master's in the US. And I worked for almost like 8 months as a brand designer in Dubai. But I realized that I wanted to do something more, and that's when I decided to like go for my master's. And New York was the first choice because I mean, New York is like the cultural center, like the global center when it comes to, design, arts. There are so many museums, galleries. It's like the city where everything's happening. So New York was definitely my first choice because of that. And everything seemed to like Urvi mentioned, even for me, everything just fell into place because I ended up getting a scholarship also at this School of Visual Arts. So which is why it just made sense, taking this, because I didn't want to take up a student loan because my father already, like, I have two other siblings, both of them are in their, doing their undergrad right now. So I don't want to put that kind of financial burden on my dad. So just the scholarship, and I got into the program and the city I wanted to. So it just, everything just worked out, and yeah, now here I am.
Yeah, the scholarship is a big one, I should say. That's, I don't know what we would do without it.
Yeah, that's very true, because I don't want the whole burden of a student loan like after this, like, because some of the people, when they talk about it, it's just so stressful.
Mhm.
Just thinking about it, so I can't even imagine going through it.
That's great. So both of you moved here last fall, right? In August.
Mhm.
How have you settled in? What have you done to like feel settled in?
For me, so one of my closest friends from Dubai, she moved in a year before I did. So initially the plan was that I would come here with my parents and they would help me, like, with the settling in, moving in and everything. But there were some issues with my visa. My visa got rejected first, so I had to apply again. So I even missed the whole orientation week and everything. So the travel was a big hassle. So my parents couldn't come with me. But luckily I had my friend here. And even though I didn't have an apartment when I just came in here, she was here. So I stayed with her for almost a month. So I feel like because I had her in the city, settling in was like a lot easier, because even while looking for apartments and everything, I had someone with me. Only issue was, at the time I was not able to focus on my my courses and everything as much as I wanted to, because at the back of my head I was just stressing over finding an apartment. But I think settling in because of her, one, that was a big help. The other thing was, even the people I work with, all of them were very welcoming, all of them were great. So I think they just helped the transition. Like, the transition was so much better because of that, because we all seemed to get along well. Even though it was like my first time away from home, because of the people I was surrounded with, for me it didn't seem as big of a transition. Like, it was a lot smoother than I thought it would be. Yeah.
Yeah,
What
the
was your
finding-
experience like?
Wait, sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I was just asking Urvi to also share her experience.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the apartment thing, I must say, it's quite the struggle here. But thank God for Facebook Marketplace, because who would have thought that that's what I'd use Facebook for, But yeah, I think the biggest thing for me has been, one, in our cohort at UC, there's just 10 of us in the MDes program this year, out of which 7 of us are not from the United States, which makes it great because 70% of our class is going through the same thing. And it's fun because we have people from like Thailand, Croatia, Iran, like all over the place. And we've all just become this really tight-knit group of people going through the same thing and leaning on each other for stuff. And I think that's been the biggest kind of help, my biggest support system in terms of just settling in. But also just having people that you can talk to, having that good support system, even if it's virtually, over video calls. So that's probably the main thing, the people.
These are great answers. Heba, you also mentioned that you're thinking about your thesis over the
Mhm.
summer. So could you let us know what a thesis is and why it's like a program requirement for you?
So our first year we focus on sort of like expanding our skills and just touching bases with a lot of like a little bit of UI UX, actual product design, and a bunch of stuff to understand what is it that you like and what is it that you want to do. And our second year is purely focused on thesis. So whatever projects that you do will be based on like the topic that you've chosen. So for my for the topic I'm thinking so far, it's because like the thing I noticed after moving to New York was that like South Indian representation in the US and in New York is very little. Because when you think like I'm a big foodie, so when it comes to food, I was just like, when you're checking for like Indian food in general, and I really wanted to like I'm always craving like my mom's food and South Indian food. And like when I was checking for places, like you can't find anything here. You check for Indian food, it's all North Indian, and even South Indian, it's just like dosa, and it's not the proper Kerala food that I want. So I was just thinking, like, in terms of culture, food, representation, South Indian representation is very low in New York and in the US. So that's when I started thinking about, like, maybe this is what I should focus my thesis on. And then it just happened, like we had like a guest lecture talk, and then I happened to meet like Louis, and through Louis I happened to meet Archana, and then everything just started to fall into place. Like, okay, this is a sign that this should be my focus, or the topic that I choose for my thesis. And in terms of requirement, it's basically, so we have so the course is structured for us. Like, it's not that we get to choose the courses. So our syllabus is structured in the way that the courses are designed for you. So whatever projects that you end up doing, so it's so that like those within those courses, you can do these projects based on what your thesis is. So you'll have a mix of maybe like some UI UX projects. Some are like physical products itself that you design. So yeah, the course is structured in a way that whatever you do in the second year, it's all you're working towards your thesis, sort of a thing, like to just make your thesis stronger.
That's great. Thank you. And we wish you all the best with all of your research. Ruby, do you want to add to, like, are you also working on a thesis? What's your course like?
Yeah, we also have to do a thesis project for the second year. And I'm actually working on, at the moment, this is what it's going to be. We all know that could change. I'm working on typography and just making it a lot more visual communication focused, because that was my background. And I'm trying to find a way, maybe on the similar lines as Heba, to kind of find a correlation between cultures, because the goal, I should say, would be to find or create typography that translates between an Indian language and English. Obviously, that's just the idea for now. I have a whole year to work on it. We'll see how it goes. But I'm actually going to be working with Mohammed here on this. So yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes.
Great, thank you. So let's shift gears a bit and transition into our topic for discussion today, social well-being. So could you let us know what social well-being is for you?
I can go first. I would say, I think for me, particularly social well-being and mental well-being is very like correlated to each other. I personally only find without having proper mental health resources, you can't have a good time socially, because I personally struggle from a little bit of social anxiety, even though sometimes I come across as an extrovert. And yeah, it's just having, like I said initially, a kind of support system that gives you that kind of like, I've got your back, no matter what you're going through. I think that mainly just gives you more confidence to live in a place where you know no one else. I should say.
I mean, for me, it's about like you feel safe and very respected, you know, by the people around you, and you feel there's a sense of belonging that you feel. I mean, that's sort of what social well-being is for me. And even after, like, I was very scared because this was like the first time I was moving and, you know, first time away from home and everything. And it was very new and very intimidating for me. But I think just having the people around you who are very open to new things, new cultures, and who want to learn more about, you know, about your culture, and then it just, even though it's very diverse, it's just that they were also very open about everything. So I think that was very helpful, like, because we all felt like it was a very safe space, even though we were all very different. So I think, yeah, it's just a sense of belonging and that sense of community that you feel, and just feeling very safe with, you know, and having a support system, honestly, is like so important. Like Urvi had mentioned, you know, just having people here and also people back home. It's just, I think that's one of the biggest help when it comes to, you know, where you feel like.
Yeah, and especially coming here because I'm finally meeting people from so many different cultures. It's just you being respectful of where they come from and them doing the same for you. I think I just got super lucky with my classmates because I mean, most of us are doing that. But just otherwise also being able to say that, okay, this is where I'm coming from, and someone else telling you their point of view in any situation, I'd say that's a big one for sure.
Also, you mentioned some like knowing and being aware of certain resources. Could you share some resources? I mean, both of you did mention you need to have like a good support system of people who
Mhm.
would care about you and stand up for you no matter where you are. But are there any other resources that you reached out to feel more secure in a social setting?
Um, did I
Take
mention?
a minute to think about it.
Heba, do you want to take this one first?
I mean, for me, I mean, obviously therapy is one. When, like, I remember first semester, I had a phase where I was so burned out, and I felt like I was just not gonna be able to like do anything the way I wanted to, like, you know, just meet my own expectations in terms of like my work and everything. So I think at the time, like, so our school had the resources, like, you know, a therapist and everything. So I reached out and I'm like, you know, this is something I need to do for myself. Because this I don't want to put that kind of burden on someone else, because I had to look out, because there are certain situations where you have to look out for yourself. So therapy was one, but also just having sometimes having some people around you sort of helps for me. At least maybe some of the close people that you have, you don't even have to like be constantly talking or anything. Just maybe just spending some time with them, going to like a quiet place or something like that, helps me personally. And sketching is something I enjoy doing a lot, as a hobby. And a long break came in between because I got busy with a lot of stuff. But then again, I've been trying to get back into the habit of sketching daily, or just finding a hobby of some sorts to keep myself busy, occupied, where I feel like, okay, I've, even if it's just a small sketch or a small thing I've done every day, there's that feeling of accomplishment, you know, that you get at the end of the day. So I think things like small things like that is what helps me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it too. I mean, I don't know. It just comes down to the people you hang out with, I should say. Because end of the day, who else do you have around you, you know?
This is great. So the next question I had was, if you could go back in time, is there something that you would do differently?
one, in terms of thesis, I would say maybe I would have advised my past self to start thinking about it a little earlier, because then that would have helped. But I mean, in terms of social well-being in UC right now, at least in design, I haven't met that many South Asians. I got lucky because one of my other classmates is from India, so she and I were able to connect very early on. And I mean, I should say I did get lucky meeting her. But just in general, I would say, because in our class it was just her and I, and we weren't connected to like the bigger Indian groups, I'd say, in IT or in computer science, because there's a lot more Indians who come for masters there. I personally didn't put in too much effort to get into one of those groups. I was like, oh, they already know each other, I'll be the outsider if I go try. And so we just didn't. We did try going to, some of the festivals that are celebrated on campus, but then again, it's like, okay, we don't know anyone else here. Let's just like stand in the corner and eat all the free food, But yeah, I maybe that's something I might do differently, just try more. I still have another whole year to go, so maybe I could do that now. But yeah, I'd say I shouldn't wait for someone else to come and approach me. Maybe I should put that effort in myself.
I mean, yeah, that I feel like that's something maybe I also should work on now, since like Urvi mentioned, just taking the initiative to like network and stuff. Because whenever we have events, I feel like I'm very exhausted, that I feel like I don't have the social energy to like, interact with people and network. And by the end of the event, I feel really bad about it. I'm like, I had this great opportunity and I just completely like missed out. But the other thing I would say is just getting over the fear of like failure, or just failing in general, because I feel like uh throughout my undergrad I was always very scared of what my project would look like in the end, that I would not take a lot of risks. And because I would be like, oh, okay, it's just better to just take the safe route, and that way you're not going to fail for sure. So I think if I could go back, and I would tell myself to just take that risk, just take the step. Because so I started my undergrad with architecture, and I ended up failing it like in my second year, and I had to switch my major. And I think that switch was like the biggest turning point in my life, because after that I really enjoyed what I was doing. I was good at it. I met a lot of like great professors, a lot of great people, and I think that's what led towards like, in my introduction to product design, just coming to New York and everything. Again, everything just made sense, and I'm very happy with where I am right now. So I feel like if that whole failure didn't happen, I probably would have been just a shitty architect right now. So and now I like what I'm doing. And so yeah, it's just sometimes you just have to take that risk and just trust the process. Just believe that, things are going to work out, even if it's going to take a little bit of time. So I think that.
You guys are so inspirational. I completely agree that you, as a designer or even as a person who's moving to the States, you have to be vulnerable and open to what comes your way, and take it as it comes to you. Okay, so lastly, we wanted to know, what were your thoughts when you heard of Sadia as a platform?
Do you want to go first?
Wait, can you repeat that again?
What were your thoughts when you heard of Sadia as a platform?
I was very happy that there was like a an organization like this, that was because, like I mentioned, like after moving here, my first thoughts were like, where are all the fellow South Indians? Like I could not find anybody in here. So when I saw this and read about Sadia, I was so happy. I'm like, there are so many people out there already, trying to bring change, and that's great. And like now being a part of this event, this feels great, honestly. So I think this is a great platform, and even the people I'm gonna meet, in the future, I'm so excited to just talk to everyone, just hear their stories, and I think it's very inspiring also. So yeah, I'm honestly really, I was so happy when I just saw this.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with this is like representation, right? Like I'd heard a lot about women in design, and that made a big difference to me personally, being a woman in design. And now you make it South Asians in design, which again, like I said, I haven't met a lot of just in general, but now there's this whole community that exists of people doing what I aspire to do. And it really does make a big difference, because just when you see someone that you can relate to and then think, okay, it's not out of reach for me, it really changes your whole perspective on what you're doing and does give you that little bit of confidence that you need. And Sadea's doing that here for us, and couldn't be more thankful.
Thank you, you guys. I'm sure this conversation was insightful for somebody who's going through a similar experience, or somebody who is, looking to come to the States for their further education. We couldn't have done this without you. So really, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you, Heba and Urvi. At this point, let's open it up to a Q&A. So if you have any questions, please put them in our chat box and we could take it from there.
Can I say something? I don't have a question, but I just had a comment about what I think Urvi mentioned about being an extrovert and social anxiety. And I thought it is, it resonates with a lot of us. Trust me, you are not the only one. I mean, I think all of us have been there. My suggestion, and it's not that this is an answer or I'm a therapist or anything at all, but like this is my experience. I feel everyone lives on a spectrum of being an introvert and extrovert. There is no, like, I mean, it depends on situations. And being an extrovert and what you said about social anxiety, it's like, as I said, like it's not mutually exclusive. It's like, personally, I think the social anxiety can come from, it can be a result of different factors. If you're meeting new people, if you're in larger crowd, or if you are being asked to speak publicly, like that can, like even to the best of us, it can cause social anxiety. So whether you are an introvert or extrovert, it doesn't matter. Yeah, even the most trained people can feel social anxiety in a given situation. So I would say if that is happening to you, that's again, like there's nothing to be afraid of. You never know, the person in front of you might be experiencing the same thing. So my general advice, and this is something that I have started following, is like just expect everyone in front of you to be on a spectrum. They can be be an extrovert, introvert, can have social anxiety. You never know what they are experiencing. So that might just help you a little bit next time. So that's just a suggestion.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's great advice, Shantanu. I agree that people are on a spectrum, and especially as designers, I feel we put ourselves out there for work anyways. So we do need some space and time to just be with ourselves and be able to reflect on what we have observed, because those observations do come in handy when we are actually working. So yeah, just allow yourself some space. It's okay to say no. Learn to say no if you haven't learned it already. And yeah, just own up to what you're feeling. Thank you. Mohammed, that's a great comment you put in the chat. Why don't you share that experience with everyone?
Thanks, Ruchita. I was writing while listening to others. because I had this issue in Chicago because there's an Indian neighborhood like Devon. So you can get a lot of restaurants over there, a lot of like deshi food over there, groceries. But after coming from there in Cincinnati, I will agree with Urvi. It's a little desert, like a desi food desert. And when hearing from Heba from New York, if they couldn't find anything like a South Indian restaurant or South Indian food, that makes me oddly a little happy or some empathetic, like saying like, oh, we are having the same problem now. Because I was envying all the New Yorkers, like, oh, you got everything over there, but now I'm a little selfishly happy. Somebody is not getting the same thing. But what I did is I started cooking. I never cooked even like an egg before coming here. Never. I mean, a typical, um, byproduct of a society which doesn't teach any male to cook. So I was like, I was experimenting with random things whenever I asked mom or my family. They always say something which I don't really realize. That I don't know what we say about this, like a little proportionate masala for that particular cooking. It's like I have no idea what are you talking about, or I cannot go with those measurements. So what I did is I experimented. Sometimes they look really nice, sometimes they taste really bad. But I also invite a lot of friends who are not Deshi people. So they actually sometimes my odd things, they say like, this is great, Mohammed, this is so good. So that actually makes me more confident about like, okay, maybe I'll do a better thing next time. So the cooking was one of the biggest success in my life, and I'm very, very proud of my cooking now. And my mom is with me today in my apartment, and I cooked for her yesterday, and she said like, why are you wasting so much money getting food from outside? I said, Mom, I cooked it. This is my cooking. What are you talking about? She's just visiting me from Canada. So now this is like the biggest achievement I have accomplished. She thought this is from a restaurant. Like, God, this is so good.
I think food is the best way
Mhm.
to like have those cultural conversations too. Like the other girl in my class, she's from Hyderabad, and obviously being in Cincinnati, she really misses biryani. And in the first semester, like she invited me over, and we tried making it for our friends that weren't Indian. And it's one of those like core memories that we always think about now. So I don't know if the biryani was any good, but they said they liked it. So, they're all good today. It was a success.
The other thing I was writing, and I think I want to say something else if it's possible, just 1 minute, which is I also think sometimes we get introvert, or sometimes we feel so much insecure to say something, to do something, especially from coming from South Asia. But I think walking in the city, it might sound odd, but just walking in the city, not talking to anybody, just walking through the city, looking at people, what they're doing, dancing, weird stuff, talking to people, that actually gives you a lot of confidence. I think that worked for me. I walked so much in Chicago, also in Cincinnati. There are some dungeons in Cincinnati as well. Like people will say like, this is not safe, but actually just walk, what will happen in daytime? But I see a lot of like kids, like, well-off people, not so well-off people, what they do, the activity. It's more like a spectator. That observation actually gives you some relatable thoughts. Like, okay, I am like this, or I can be like this, aspiring thoughts and all. That can actually give you a lot of momentum to do that while you are so insecure, like, hey, if I do this, people will think something else. But I think that gives you a lot of confidence. I mean, that at least for me, that gave me a lot of confidence when I was a student, like 10, 12 years ago here. I was confused, like what to do, or like what was right, what was wrong. But I think it doesn't matter what is right or wrong. It matters whether it's just, or it's harmful. I think everything it can be justified with your thought. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with Muhammad. Walking does help. I do that sometimes. I just walk on campus and just look around, and I'm at awe with myself, thinking that what I did when I was 18 years old, I wouldn't have been able to do that now at this age. And also thinking back, that was only, to me, it feels like, it was only a couple of years back, but it's, time goes by and it's going to be almost 10 years, I'm completing my 8 years and soon it'll be 10 years. So it's a very weird feeling to think that you feel accomplished when you do that. And that gives you confidence to think you're in a whole new environment. And then you did not know these people, but somehow you'll walk by and you'll come across someone who and you'll think in your head that, wow, I've created this life for myself and I'm doing this continuously as an international foreigner. As a foreigner, we have that deep connotation with the word foreigner, right? In South Asian culture, we like to see those other people as foreigners and we're in awe at their lives. But hey, we're doing it here in the United States. So it's incredible what you all are doing. And you're fighting being international. Being an international student in the United States sometimes feels like a fight. So you all are doing it and you're conquering it really well.
Really, thank you so much.
For sharing your vulnerabilities. Go ahead, Garima.
Sorry, I have a very noisy coffee shop behind me. So if you are not able to hear me, let me know. First of all, thank you so much. Like cooking, walking, all of those things are so helpful. I was wondering if anybody from the group was willing to like think about with me how do you all work with like educators or education system that is a part of our social being, teaching us not our history, like there's so much of like Eurocentric ways that we learn design. And I was wondering like how do you all try to push that in your teaching or in your learning, or how do you advocate for your own learning in a system that doesn't teach you your own history or whatever history you want to learn. And a second fold to that question is how do you all also like work with the challenges of when we are also pushed to work from our identity when we don't want to? Like I think there are like a lot of unsaid expectations that are also put on us. So I was wondering if anybody would be willing to like talk to me, and also in the audience, if you have any questions or things you struggle with, I would love for everybody to chime in.
Well, I'll say something. Hopefully that buys people enough time to add more to this. But I don't remember the exact wording of your question, but I think if I understand the gist of it, well, actually, no. Maybe I should just ask you. Can you repeat that in a sentence?
Yes. What I'm trying to ask is like, how do you all educate for your own learning? Like social well-being is such an important part of our education system. Like we come here so many times, sometimes to escape, and also to just like develop ourselves, right? So I'm asking, how do you advocate for yourself when you want to study your own history in education, which is not given to us? Like we learn design is an extremely Eurocentric field, and we learn typography in it, we learn everything in it. So like how do you push if you are willing to like think outside of Eurocentric ways? I struggled that in my teaching. Like I taught a history of design class and I was just like kind of struggling there are a lot of resources, but we're still not given resources how to teach history that's not entrenched in Western philosophies. So how as students we advocate for our own learning and teaching, because I didn't have that in grad school.
Yeah, and and the same, like I don't think one thing that I loved, and I think Urvi mentioned that there's like 7 of you who are not from the US. There are 7 people who are from outside US. And I think that is so important for educational institutions to understand that they're like that there has to be more people from outside if you really want to bring in diverse opinions. Um, so nothing against Americans who go to other countries and study their history and come here, come back as experts and teach the history. But I think that thing is getting old. That needs to, I don't know whether it needs to stop, but I feel this is one thing that I love, that like a lot of people from other countries are coming here. They're getting those opportunities, going back to their cultural roots and then exploring, and then in a way rewriting history that was written by someone else, like our own history that was written by someone else. So that's one of the reasons why I think like more and more people from outside US need to come, whether it's US or any other country, like, I mean, and history needs to be written by people who are from that culture. So I love that like there are so many people from South Asia here, and I hope that, I mean, again, this is just an advice. You don't have to do that, but my recommendation would be there's so much that needs to be added to our history, and I hope you take this as a challenge. And whether you think it's a small contribution, big contribution, whatever, it's a contribution, and it's not going to be done in a day. And I hope you keep adding to that. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. So work in progress.
Archana, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just lucky as a grad student. I got to work on looking at my own cultural identity. And what does that mean, being an Indian at that time? I was in the country for almost 20 years or so, and just really observing all of the stereotyping and marginalization that was happening, the misunderstanding of history and everything else. So I was really fortunate to have a grad advisor who kind of pushed me to to explore my own identity, right? And I went into grad school late. I was 36 years old, practicing designer for almost 12 years, and then did grad school and came out of it. The result of it was starting a program here at ISU that focused on cultural identity and cross-cultural awareness and competency and everything else. So at least as an educator, I can say that every project that I teach has a cultural identity or multicultural kind of something that focuses on identity, where students have to kind of go back into their own ancestral histories and look at what it is, right, that they want to focus on, whether it's typography class or a branding class, it doesn't matter. They just have to do that. So in that way, they get to know their own, like who they are and where do they come from. And there's a sense of respect, a mutual respect develops in the classroom, right? And then right now, at least in our curriculum, not our curriculum in general at the university, we are looking for an global Asian studies program. So that's something that our students can take, right? And then I hope other, as educators, as we are listening to students speak, thank you, Urvi, Heba, Ruchita, Amrita, Garima, Mohammed, and Asavaris, who's not here. You are all so amazing. You put this together, and thank you so much. And so we all have to kind of advocate for our own histories. So thank you.
Manasya, would you like to say something to it? I see you've raised your hand.
Yeah, so Urvi has invited me to this meeting, and I feel so grateful because I'm a Master of Design student, first year in University of Cincinnati. And as Urvi has discussed, the problem with being an Indian student in US is, for us especially, is not that we are unable to find the other Indians. It's more about how can we be in a community where we can relate more to the designers, because I kind of try to get involved with the other Indians when I first came here. But the thing is, it's so hard for me to relate to their journey or whatever they are going through, because it's completely different from what a designer goes through. And especially when you're just like coming from India and the kind of journey you have and the experience that you have. So we both have been always like, we'll be discussing, like, if you find any communities or if you know anything, like, please forward me, and like, I'll forward you, like, because we are the only two designers in the whole, like, the university that we know each other who are going through similar thing. And I'm so grateful for it. And now I feel so glad that I found something like, I didn't know that there's already a community where like all the designers are, like being helpful for each other. So I feel like I want to be part of it, and I also want to know more about this.
Thank you. Thank you for joining today. And we are glad you are excited to be a part of Sadia. Satare, is that how you say your name?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to see some familiar faces. Sorry, I had another meeting and I said that I have to go join to this meeting. First of all, I wanted to say thank you for this event. I feel that I really need to join this type of events because I see that the lack of those type of support for people of color, and I feel that this is very necessarily, and even it's just a 1 hour and tea time. And I joined very late, but I heard that you were talking about well-being or stress, that as an educator, personally, I felt that I really need it, especially I saw Archana, you had a symposium for October that I wanted to apply. I applied for another proposal, and I wanted to apply for your proposal, but they didn't let me. I don't know, maybe I couldn't apply for 2 more. But as a faculty of color, I feel that educating people in different culture is not easy, because my undergrad was completely different. It was a long time ago, and I see myself again as a student. I'm still reading, I'm still struggling to find the material. I started to design a course, cross-cultural design, and find lots of projects. Before this meeting, I was just exactly designing the slides for my lectures, that's what type of examples I have to bring, not just only from my culture, from Chinese culture, Asian culture. And I felt myself that still I'm in a process of learning, and I don't know when it ends. So because it's like a student that every time I'm studying with my students, I always tell that I'm like you, I'm learning with you guys. And when I was in my grad school, most of my project, it was about my background culture, and my second master, I wanted to not to use anything about my culture, but my professor didn't let me. He said that, no, you have to use it. I said, so what? Imagine that I didn't have that culture or background identity. Did I have anything to say, or I always have to use that? And by the time I found that this is a really valuable thing, and it really helps to use it, especially for a designer or for artists. And now it's very trend, it's very fashion, that all the people from other culture, they use it in their works. So, and I feel that is a good thing, that we have a special things that maybe some other people, they don't have. When I talk to my students, talk about American culture, I really have a hard time to think that what they have to find exactly. Tailgate, football with the culture, so what they can find exactly for their project. But this is a privilege that we can have a history, we can have an art from very old civilizations. But again, I just want to say hi, and very happy to see all of you.
Thank you, Sitare. Thank you so much for joining us. I also wanted to add in like a brief reflection. I feel similar to like us being an introvert to an extrovert, it's a spectrum. Our identities are also kind of shifting as we move to a new country, and there has definitely been a spectrum of change that I have been observing within myself. So for me personally, it has also been coming to terms with and accepting that, changing is fine. really questioning myself about my own identity and what I want it to be really helps me be confident with the conversations I have, the decisions I make as a designer when it comes to my research. So yeah, thank you everyone for today. Before we end today's session, we also wanted to share that we are looking for students who would like to volunteer as a designer and or be a part of the student mentorship community. We hope to host more events like this, which cater to international students. Please feel free to network and connect with us by sending us a message. I'm putting down a link here in the chat. So please fill out the form to stay in touch. And we are also on some social media. So we are on LinkedIn. We are also on Facebook and Instagram. So please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. This was a great event. And I know this is a longer conversation, but please know that Sadia is here for you and reach out to us whenever you feel the need to. Yeah.
I just want to make an announcement. Even if you don't want to volunteer, nothing, if you want any communication from us, please enter your email. You'll save this chat. So if some events come in the future, just so that we can email you or just let you know what's going on with Sadia, please enter your emails in the chat if you wish for us to contact you. We would just love to talk to you in general. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you everyone for joining again. This has been a wonderful discussion and we would definitely like to keep this moving. So feel free to connect with us and, talk about cross-cultural design in the States.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
Yeah, I think it was like very helpful hearing everyone's thoughts and insights on this. So yeah, thank you. I'm so happy I could be a part of this and meet all of you.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you.